Welcome back to the channel. It's the first video. Today I'm reviewing a novel called The Transmigration of Timothy Archer by Philip K. Dick. It's the third book in the Valis trilogy, and even though he had some books that were released after his death, this was basically his last novel. I'm not sure it was intended to be the third novel in the trilogy. I think there's another novel that was intended to be that, called The Owl in Daylight, which I have to learn a little bit more about. But before I get into this one, let me make a quick overview of the Philip K. Dick books I've read so far. In every case, I'll be using the author's full name because otherwise every sentence sounds hilarious. When I was a kid, I had a copy of the novel of Blade Runner because I loved the movie, but I read like the first chapter of the book and realized that it was nothing like the movie and just gave up on it and looked at the cover. Fast forward several decades to the current era, and the first thing I read was a short story he wrote from the 50s called Small Town. It's very much like a Twilight Zone episode in terms of the setup and the surprise at the end. But I noticed a few things that were unique about this writer. First of all, the characters were kind of less civilized and more despicable than you would have expected for a standard 50s story. They were all like fake with each other, and there was no real love among them. And also the twist at the end was a little bit more weird and interesting than you would have expected from a standard Twilight Zone episode. Then I read these books. I like some of them more than others, and I saw that his view of people is sort of the same through all these books. There's no real loyalty or friendship or connection at all. Some people aren't that bad, some people are really bad, but no one actually cares about anyone else. And it kind of feels like this view of humanity is Philip K. Dick's sci-fi. Like that's how he sees relationships headed. He's not completely wrong. The books I liked most among these were The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. In both of these cases, you have characters that are still completely self-centered, but they're put through so much nightmare that you start to feel compassion for them, and you can start to feel the author's compassion for them. In both of these books, there's a moment where characters are talking to each other frantically, in both cases a man and a woman, trying to figure out which drug they're going to take or which religion they're going to use or which other mood-altering device they're going to use, because the idea of being in their reality without some form of escape is intolerable. Philip K. Dick has a lot to say about addiction. I think he had trouble with drug use in his life. He sounds like he was a bit of a complicated character and maybe not a very happy guy. His last three novels before his death are very different from everything else that I've read by him. Starting with Valis, which was published in 1981, which is semi-autobiographical. Philip K. Dick himself is the narrator, and the protagonist is a different version of himself called Horse Lover Fat. And it's a lot about living in the 60s and 70s in the Berkeley area of California, that college community. And it feels like the voice that he had in his other novels is gone, and it's a different voice telling these stories. And the characters are all of a sudden real people. And everything about these three novels is great. I think if you read the first chapter of Valis, you'll see exactly what I mean, and I think you'll be instantly hooked. These three books are wild and fascinating and grounded in reality. I might do reviews on some of these other books, but today I'm going to focus on the last one, The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, published in 1982. This is my favorite book of the trilogy. It's my favorite book by Philip K. Dick, and it's one of my favorite books that I've ever read. It's told in first person by a woman. I don't know if Philip K. Dick has other female protagonists. I've read criticism of him that he doesn't have strong female characters. But this character is one of my favorite protagonists that I've ever read. She's right up there with Alicia from Stella Maris. And there's some similarities in these two characters. Her name is Angel Archer, and she is a Berkeley grad that never quite got out of Berkeley, so it's very much in the same kind of autobiographical style as Valis. Other reviews I've seen of this book, there's not a lot of them. They all seem to focus on the Timothy Archer character. But to me, she is definitely the main character of the book. And I'm not really giving away any huge spoilers. She basically says the main things that happen right in the first chapter, which is a technique that is also in the Book of the New Sun, which I've been reading. And there is a review of that coming soon. And this book is about Angel living through 3 suicides of people close to her. Well, one of them isn't exactly a suicide. And all of the characters in this book feel completely real, from beginning to end. I kind of feel like this is a perfect novel. Why do I like this character so much? Well, I guess it's mostly just the way she talks, the thoughts she thinks, also very much the sarcasm she uses sometimes when she's talking to people. A lot of this is her dealing with being a Berkeley intellectual and sort of dealing with the curse of the constant overthinking and philosophizing that was going on in that place and time. I would say this book isn't exactly sci-fi. It kind of is. There's like 2 events that are possibly supernatural. And in the first one, Angel kind of believes that something supernatural has happened at first. But the author includes information that could lead the reader to see a non-supernatural explanation. And the second time something supernatural happens in the book, Angel doesn't believe it and goes to great lengths to explain it away. But the author gives just a little bit of information that can't be explained away. And I feel it's very masterful the way he treads the line. Is that a correct expression? Treads the line? Probably not. Walks the line between whether anything science fiction is happening or not. But I'm really not sure why he does that. The other main character in the book is Timothy Archer, who is the Episcopal Bishop of California. And he could have easily been a stereotype asshole. But instead, in this book, he's a terrific character. He does have many egotistical tendencies, but also very good qualities. And Angel cares about him very much. Her connection to the bishop is that her husband, Jeff Archer, is the bishop's son. Jeff Archer is a very sad character, and he's the first to die in the novel. Angel's also friends with the bishop's mistress, Kirsten, who is quite a despicable character, but Angel considers her her best friend. Angel is pretty isolated here. She doesn't have a lot of friends, and the ones she does, she's very loyal to them. And another important character is Kirsten's son, Bill, who is a young man with mental health issues, and he's always in and out of inpatient. The only other person I talked to who's read this book is this fella Greg, who runs this awesome bookshop on the Cape, and he said he really couldn't get into it. Like the other books in the Valis trilogy, about 75% of this is people talking about philosophy and religion, which I probably wouldn't like either, except for the fact that the things they're talking about are really, really interesting. The bishop talks about Jesus as a force that could patch a worshiper into an extraplanetary god to subvert the fate of astral influences, sort of like the old god versus the new gods. And Angel puts that into her own mindset as a way of thinking with hope from a collective mindset of damnation. Angel is ardently non-religious, but she adores the bishop, and they have great conversations. A lot of this book is about the bishop's crisis of faith, when new texts are discovered with Christian sayings and ideas predating Christ. Angel goes through a lot in this book, dealing with survivor's guilt. And the way it comes to a close is heartbreaking, uplifting, and hopeful at the same time. I love this novel. It's one of the best I've ever read. And I think Philip K. Dick got better and better as he went along. And maybe he saved the best for last. All right, I'd love to hear any comments. If you've read this book, let me know what you think, and tune in for the next one. Peace.